the SOI. And the good news about working the SOI is, and I mentioned to you guys yesterday that this class is one that I can 100% guarantee that if you will follow the process that I'm going to give you today, it will work. Now, to some extent, and I don't remember who said it, I think Jesse yesterday or something said something about to the effect of, well, doesn't everything you're going to teach us work? And yes, I would agree that it does. But for whatever reason, I would say that this particular class is just one that, and I guess as I kind of, it got me thinking, Jesse, yesterday, think after that of just like, why do I say it that way? Because you're right. Really, at the end of the day, everything that I'm teaching does work.
Right.
But this one in particular is just one that I guess probably the reason I say it is this. Here's probably the way I would best explain it. And maybe this is how I should say it. If you're not going to do anything else that I teach you, do this. And maybe that's probably the better way of saying it, because in essence, that is more what I mean, is if you're not going to do anything else that I have taught you, do this. Now, with that being said, let me throw this in as well, and that is this. In terms of what we're going to talk about today is something that is, as I said, it's 100% guaranteed to work. It will work if you will do it. The challenge is, the frustration that I have is, at the end of the class today, you're going to be really excited about what I teach you. You should be, at least, really, really excited about what I'm going to teach you today. But here's the challenge, or the frustration that I have, is that most of you are not going to do it based on what I teach you today. Now, I don't say that to frustrate you or dissuade you or anything like that. I'm not bringing it up for that reason, but I say it more as a little bit of a challenge. And here's what I mean by that. So I'm going to share with you the idea that that somebody shared with me, probably close to 23, 24 years ago, something like that. And when they shared it, here's how they did it, is they said this: I'm going to give you the best marketing idea that you will ever hear, and none of you are going to go and do it. And that was how this idea, not this whole class, but this one particular piece that I will talk to you about, was presented to me. And I will tell you that I went and did it. So in the class, and it was actually a meeting that this guy was sharing this. What it was he was there trying to sell a software program to us. Back in the day, you would buy a software program, you'd have to get the floppy disks and put them in and load it onto your computer. Well, that's what he was there at our office trying to sell. But while he was there, he said, I'm going to give you guys an idea. And here's where it came from for him, is he said, I travel the country and go into offices all the time, a couple of times a day, every week. And he said, I'm going to share with you what I have heard as the best idea in terms of to send to your sphere of influence, and none of you are going to do it. And I was like, okay, I'm doing it. I don't care what it is, I'm doing it. So to some extent, when I say to you guys, what I'm going to teach you in the whole class, I will include that concept into what we're going to talk about. But overall, the whole class we're going to talk about, as I said, if you're not going to do anything else, do this. Yet, most of you are going to leave the class and not do it. So I'm not saying that to be negative, but I'm saying it because I would recommend, and Philip, I noticed, is here again, which is great. This particular class, I would recommend that you come to it every time I teach it until it's working for you. And the reason being for that is, you're going to be excited about it at the end of the class today. You're going to be like, oh yeah, I can totally see why that would work. And the reason that you're going to be excited and see that it could work is because it is based upon principle. Think about principle as we talk about gravity as the law of gravity. Well, gravity actually is not a law. A law is something that governs by consent or decree, meaning either a king decrees it as such or we vote on it, and so we consent to it. That's what a law is. Well, gravity is not a law, meaning we could go out and vote against it, but then you go step off the building and see what's going to happen. See, it's a principle, it is not a law. Well, what I'm going to teach you in today is based upon principle, and that is why I can say I am 100% guarantee you it's going to work, just the same as I could tell you gravity works. Gravity is going to continue to work. Well, same with this. Now, here's the challenge, though. So I'm going to take you through it. You're going to be excited about it. You're going to be ready to go and excited to go do it. But some of the pieces of it, you're going to, along the way, potentially forget about. So along the way, you may forget some of these things that we're going to talk about. So I'm going to give you actually 4 protocols. Think of protocols as being required conditions. So protocols are not rules, they're a required condition. So I'm going to give you 4 protocols that if you will follow these 4 protocols, it will work. It is guaranteed to work because it's a math problem. Now I'll show you what I mean by that. So don't, if you don't like math, don't panic about what we're going to talk about, because it's not that difficult. In fact, when I explain it to you, every one of you is going to understand it. So if you're one of those, I'm not a math person, it's fine. You're going to get it. But please, please, please come back to this class every time I teach it. And I beg for that every single time, and very few people will come back. So Philip's here, which is great. I appreciate it. And I would recommend for you guys, keep coming back, because if you will, it will work. All right. So just last thing before we jump into this is, if you haven't already, which a bunch of you have, but throw in first name and last name and which office you're in, just so that I have a list of that there. All right, here we go. So we're going to talk about working your sphere of influence. And this is the most powerful tool that you could have in this business. And I would say, if over time your business does not get easier and your income does not go up, it is because you're not working your sphere of influence. Because over time, what should happen is the business should get easier, your income should go up because of price ranges going up, and not just the market. When I say that the price range is going up, I don't mean just the market. I mean the people that you're working with are spending more money on houses, is what I mean by that. So keep that in mind as we go through and talk about it. Now, so before we do that though, I got to hit on a couple of other things. So think of it this way, is we're going to talk about 3 groups of people for a minute here. And I'm going to take you through these 3 groups of people. The third one is what we're going to spend the majority of the class on. But before we get that, I want to make sure you understand the other 2. So we're going to go quickly through these other 2 areas of people that you're going to work with, but we're going to spend the majority of the time on the 3rd area. So the first one here though is, let's talk about clients. Okay. So what makes someone a client? So what I want you guys to do is, if you will share with me what makes someone a client, but before you do, let me clarify one piece of this. When I say what makes somebody a client, you learned in real estate school. So you learned from a legal perspective what a client is, and that parts of that are going to be included in what we're talking about. But when I say a client, what I'm talking about is you getting paid. So I'm not talking about from the legal perspective that the division of real estate is going to call a client, although it is included in that. But I'm talking about, how do you know you're going to get paid from somebody? That's what I'm talking about with a client. So I talked about with your sphere of influence, we're going to talk about 4 protocols. Let's talk about for a minute on the client. There are 4 things that make someone a client. And if they are missing any one of these 4 things, I would tell you they're not a client. And I would say that doesn't mean that you can't get them to become a client, but they're not, in my mind, a client. And for me, I define a client as somebody you are going to get paid from. Okay. So now with that in mind, there's 4 things. So what would you guys guess are the things that a person would have to have, be, or do in order for them to be considered a client? Okay, Corbin said willing and able. Good. Somebody else, Jesse, go ahead.
Maybe sign an employment contract with you.
Okay, good. And Leslie's saying pay for your service. Good. Okay. So here's the first one I'm going to put is, I'm going to write it down. I'll tell you guys what to put. I'm writing it down as you. The first thing that has to happen is they have got to be willing to work with you. And not only willing, let me rephrase that. Here's how I want you to write it down. They have to be committed to working exclusively with you. So in order for someone to be a client, they have to be committed to working exclusively with you. Now, Kyle put in their signed contract. And like I said, from the standpoint of the division, they would say they've got to sign a contract. Well, I would include signing the contract in here. The way that they demonstrate that they are committed to working exclusively with you is by signing a contract. But is it possible for somebody to sign a contract and not be committed to working with you? Yeah, obviously. But it's also possible that somebody hasn't signed a contract and they're committed to working exclusively with you. In fact, I would say from the client's perspective, if you never asked them to sign a contract to a buyer broker or a listing agreement, they could still be committed to working with you even though they've never signed it. So both sides of those could work, but the key is they are committed to working exclusively with you. The way they're going to demonstrate it by signing a contract. All right, number two. Then let's see. Corbin said willing and able. So good. I'm going to say it a little bit differently, but you're right on. So I'm going to write it here as they have to have a need. So I'm writing it on the board as they have to have a need. Here's how I want you to write it down. They have to have clear and present needs that can be met. So they have to have clear and present needs that can be met. That's the second thing that makes somebody a client. See, now from the division standpoint, they would never tell you this. That part of it is, but that's because they're worried about the legal side of things. I'm worried about you making money. And in order for you to have somebody that's a client, they have to have clear and present needs that can be met. Well, we talked about on Monday the needs analysis. The whole point of the needs analysis is tied to this, of figuring out, do they have clear and present needs that can be met? So when Corbin said willing and able, that's where I would include into this. Clear and present needs, they know what they want and that can be met means it exists and they're able to do it. Okay, good. What about number three? They start to get a little bit harder here. So Leslie said pay for your service. Yeah, so I would lump that, Leslie, into the all of these basically, is meaning that that's what's going to be the envelope, is that they're willing to do that. These last two are a little harder. I may have to help you with them, and that's fine. So Kyle said pre-qualified. I would put pre-qualified under the clear and present needs that can be met. That's the can be met part. But so excellent. Love what you're thinking, but I would throw that up there. All right, I'll give you this one then. And I'll have to give you the last one too, because it's even harder. Number three is now. They need to be committed to buying or selling now. So that's what makes somebody a client, is they're committed to buying or selling now. You might have someone who is committed to working with you. They have clear and present needs that can be met, but they're saying, yeah, but I want to wait until next summer. Well, that's not now. So for me, here's how I define now. Now is defined as when we find this need that they brought up here. So if it's a buyer, we find the property that meets their needs. If it's a seller, we get an offer that meets their needs. They'll sign the contract. They're not going to say to you, okay, yeah, oh, that's a great property. I love it. Now let's just hope it's still for sale in about 4 months. That's not now. So now doesn't mean tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, but it does mean when we find the property, if it's a buyer, or when we get an offer in and you're a seller, you will do the deal then because we found it. That's what now means. All right. Number 4 thing that has to happen for somebody to be a client is they have to be tethered. What does tethered mean? Somebody unmute or throw it in the chat box, either way. Go ahead.
Connected to. Connected to.
Perfect. I love it. So how would we, so now let me walk you through this for a second. And Leslie said joined. Perfect. How would we connect them to us when we, I've already included the contract up here. They've signed a buyer broker agreement up here as part of the being committed to working exclusively with you. So how would we tether them to us if it's not through the contract?
Build rapport.
Okay, for sure. Love that. What other thoughts? All right, I'll help you then. Here's what it is. We tether our client to us through appointments. So I'm abbreviating it, but appointments. So here's what I'm saying. You cannot have a client without having an appointment. So what that means is this. If you have somebody who is committed to working exclusively with you, they have clear and present needs that can be met, they want to do it now, and you don't have an appointment with them, I would say to you, they're not your client. Because if they're a client and they meet these other 3 criteria, you should always have an appointment with them. Said another way, you should never leave an appointment with a client without scheduling the next appointment. Always schedule the next appointment when you leave with a client. You should always have that next appointment scheduled. If you will do that and you will follow these 4 things, you'll get paid with people. All right, so now, like I said, I'm more doing that to set up for where we're headed here. The next one is what we would call prospects, or we could call them a lead. And in fact, maybe I'll even just start doing that, but think of it as a lead, but I'm going to call it a prospect. So we have prospects. Now, what makes somebody a prospect is this. They are deficient in one or more of these. So if somebody is missing one of these 4, they're now a prospect or a lead, not a client. So let me show you what that looks like. So let's say that I have somebody who has clear and present needs that can be met. They are committed to working exclusively with you. They want to do it now, but you don't have an appointment with them. Well, I just told you earlier, I wouldn't say they're not a client. They're now a prospect or a lead. Okay, so that means we got to handle them differently because I don't have an appointment with them, which my next objective should be to schedule an appointment with them. But until I do, I've got to do things a little different. Okay, how about this? I've got somebody who's committed to working exclusively with me. They have clear and present needs that can be met, but they're not ready to do it now. Well, then they're not going to be considered a client. Okay, so think of it this way. These prospects are becoming clients. Or a prospect is going to become what we'll talk about over here with your SOI, or a prospect you're going to drop. Okay, so think of it this way. When you get a lead, what you should be doing is trying to get them to become a client. But in the event that I come across somebody that I'm trying to get to be a client, and as I said, they're committed to working exclusively with me, they have clear and present needs that can be met, just not right now, well, then they're not a client. So I can't put them into this box. I either have to put them into this box, the SOI database, or I drop them. So think of it, when you're prospecting, what you are doing is trying to get people to become a client, clearly, which you knew that. But in the event I can't get them to do that, I'm either going to drop them or put them over here. Well, so now here's the question for you. And let's use the example that I used. I have somebody who's committed to working exclusively with me. They have clear and present needs that can be met, and they're ready to go now. Meaning when they find the property, they're writing the offer, or they're going to, a listing's a little different on this. But let's stick with the buyer. When they find the property, they're going to write the offer. Well, I don't have an appointment with them. So if how I manage my clients is through appointments, how am I going to manage prospects? Because it can't be through appointments, because that might be what I'm missing. So how should I manage somebody who I don't have an appointment with? I got to get an appointment, but until I do, what do I do with them?
You follow up with them?
Good. How often?
Depending on when they want to make an action by, maybe every week, every other week.
Well, so remember what I just said. They're ready to go now. How often should I be contacting them, do you think?
I say 2 or 3 times a day then.
Okay, good. I like where you're thinking. So I would say on this, it's going to be a minimum of 1 time per week. So somebody that you would classify as a lead, or you could even say over here on the client side, but I don't have an appointment with them, you should have a minimum call of once a week. Until, remember what I said, until they become a client, because you're going to have some of your leads that you get that aren't committed to working exclusively with you. They have clear and present needs that can be met. They might be ready to go now and you don't have an appointment. Well, then you need to stay in touch with them until you can get them to become a client. Hopefully that makes sense. Is ultimately I am going to stay in touch once a week until they become a client. They become what we're going to talk about here, or we drop them. All right. Question, Nina?
Nope,
Okay,
it's good.
I just noticed you had unmuted, so I'm going to mute then, just so that because there's
Okay.
background noise. Okay. All right, so that's what makes somebody a prospect. Now let's go over here to your SOI, or sometimes I jokingly will, since we call these prospects, these are suspects. We suspect they're going to do something sometime. Okay, so that's where suspects come from. All right, we're going to spend the rest of the time talking about the suspects and the 4 protocols for that. But I wanted to make sure you guys understand this is what makes somebody a client. A prospect or a lead is becoming a client, or we're going to put them over here. Because see, if I come across that person who has clear and present needs that can be met, they're committed to working exclusively with me, but it's not till next summer. Well, I wouldn't want to drop that person because I'm going to need a deal next summer as well. So why not have a process in place to take care of it? Well, that's what we're going to talk about now, is this SOI and the suspects prospect stuff. All right. So with that in mind, now that we've talked about that, I want to show you guys, and I just realized I forgot to pull this up. So let me see if I can get to it really fast here. Shoot. Oh, that's not it. All right, if this isn't it, then we won't worry about it, but I think this is it. I want to show you guys, this is a survey that is done by the National Association of Realtors every year, okay? And what they do is they go out and interview and do a survey of buyers and sellers from the year before. And they don't, what they do not use let me make sure this is working here. All right, perfect. So they don't use the MLS to do this though. What they use is they go to the tax data records and they pull up people who have bought or sold homes, and then they go and send out a survey to them. And they do this every year. Now, what you're looking at is the 2019 profile of home buyers and sellers. You're looking at how people chose their agent as a listing agent by repeat and first-time sellers. Now, when you look at that, actually, let me have you guys tell me. Well, no, I'm gonna shorten this. So typically, I'll have a little bit longer discussion. I'm just gonna say it because I want to get to the more important stuff. When you look at this, one of the things you're going to notice is the very top there, 39% of all sellers choose their agent because they are referred by or they are a friend, neighbor, or relative. 27% said they used the agent before. Those two added together in my book is what would constitute your database or your SOI. Well, if you add those two together, you will see that 66% or 2/3 of the time, the way that a seller chooses the agent they're going to use is because they either used them in the past or they were referred by or is a friend, neighbor, or relative. So at the end of the day, 66% of the time they're choosing their agent because it's somebody they know or have been referred to. Well, notice that 2/3 of the time. Well, then you go to the third best way to get a seller is other. I don't know what that is, but 10% of them, that's where that comes from. So that should be, we should be working our sphere of influence and other, which you'll notice after that, the drop off is so significant. I mean, 5% came from personal contact by the agent. So that's where making phone calls, knocking on doors works. Internet website, 4%, visit an open house, 3%. You can see that the numbers drop dramatically. So make sure you're understanding this. Now let's look at the seller side, or buyer side, excuse me. So on the buy side, 41% were referred by or is a friend, neighbor, or relative, and 12% used the agent before. So 52% of the time, the way that they're choosing their agent is because of basically out of a database or SOI. And again, the third best is other. If I can figure out what the other is, that's what we would do. The problem is, other just means it wasn't in the list and could have been anything. But notice again on the buy side how it drops off. 7% came off of a website. Then after that, it's referred by another agent, those type of things. So ultimately, and in fact, I guess if you took this website reference, which is 5%, and inquired about a specific property online, which would basically be a website, and you add those two together, now again, you're back up there to 12%, I guess, again. So I guess technically that could be the third best. But regardless of that, I'm going to take this away now. So here's the point, is the best way for you to get business from what you just saw, 2/3 of the time, the way you're going to get a seller is through SOI or a database. 52% of the time, it's going to be out of the database. That's why I'm so passionate about, you got to make sure you're using your database. Well, so here's what we're going to do. Based upon that, here's the other thing. I'm going to erase this. Hopefully you got it all, and we'll throw back the talking about the 4 protocols here in just a bit. But ultimately, here's the thing. The way that most people will go about working their database is they go about it from a perspective or a standpoint that is not effective. And now, even though I say that, like, understand what I'm saying is, even if you didn't do what I'm going to teach you guys today, you've got to work your database. You have to. But most people, the way they approach working their database doesn't work. Because, meaning it doesn't work as good as it could. I shouldn't say it doesn't work. It works, but it doesn't work the way that it should work because they don't have a process. What happens is they approach it from a standpoint of, we're going to talk about 2 types of systems today. There are open systems and closed systems. This is where I was telling you we're going to talk about some math things. And what we're going to introduce to you, what I'm going to introduce to you right now, is as in-depth as we're going to get on math, which some of you might be like, whoa, that's like way deeper than I thought. But it's really not. But I have to make sure you understand how math works. So in order to do that, I've got a video that I want to show you guys real quick first that shows a little bit about this, about math. And it deals with what we're going to talk about in terms of our math problem. Now, as I'm pulling this up, let me just explain to you that this video I'm going to show to you is from, I don't even know what year it would have been, back in the early 70s, maybe even, I don't know, could have been when TV was still black and white. And some of you may not have even known that was ever the case. I don't know. But back when there was not color TV, everything was black and white. What I'm going to show you is a video clip from what was called Ma and Pa Kettle, which was basically a sitcom that was on TV. And I'm going to show you this video, and then we're going to talk about it. So here we go. Let me pull it up here. And hopefully the sound works good.
I figure 75% to you, Pond.
I had this problem last time.
Divided between the 5 of us.
Can you guys hear it okay? I can
good.
hardly hear it.
No,
it sounds good? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to let it run then, and I'll quit talking.
5% divided between the 5 of us. Yida, Crowbar, myself, Tom, and the baby. That makes 5% for each one of us.
Billy, you're cheating yourself. If there's 25% divided among the 5 of you, that's 14% apiece.
Oh, no, listen, Pa. I wouldn't cheat you. You know I wouldn't. Now, look here. I'll show you. Let me rub this out here. And now, 25 divided by 5 is 5. You see, 5 won't go into 2, will it? No. But 5 goes into 25 5 times, you see?
No, you're wrong, Billy. Now, I'm a pretty good mathematician. Now, 5 into 25... 5 won't go into 2, will it?
No.
But 5 goes into 5 once. Now, we didn't use the 2 before, so we bring it down here. Now, 5 into 20 goes 4 times. There you are. 5 into 25, 14.
No, look, Pa. Let me prove it to you now by multiplication. 5 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25.
Really, I'm surprised you're learning.
Huh?
I'm surprised that you're learning. Now I'll show you. 5 times 14 is 25. 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 1 is 5. 25. That's it.
No, look, Ma. See, look, you're wrong there because I'll prove it to you. We'll put down 5 14s here. 14. There. Now I'll prove to you by addition that 5 14s is not 25. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20.
21, 22, 23, 24, 25. There you are. Better brush up, Billy. I don't want to see you boys cheated.
All right. Well,
Makes me
that's how we're
question
going to
my
do math today. What's that?
I said makes me question all the math I've been doing.
Here's the bad news for me is I have watched that video enough times from teaching this class now that if I had to do the multiplication the way they were saying, I think I would probably do it the way that Mom and Pa did it. Anyway, all right. Here's the thing. So what we're going to talk about is a math problem. Working your sphere of influence is a math problem. It's not a people problem. So now, to some extent, as I go through and explain this to you guys are going to feel like I'm doing Ma and Pa Kettle math here in just a minute, which is why I actually like to show that video, is because you're going to think I'm doing it that way. Or was it President Bush that said it's fuzzy math? I think it was Bush that said that. Like, I'm going to do some fuzzy math with you guys for a little bit too, but at least it's going to feel that way. It's really not. But we're going to talk about two types of systems. In math, there is a system that is called an open system, but then there's also one that's called a closed system. And the problem is the way that most people approach working their sphere of influence, they approach it as an open system. And if you approach working your sphere of influence in an open system, it will work. So let me just say that. It will work. And it is the way most agents work it. However, if you'll work it as a closed system, you can have it be supercharged to where it can be the way that you make money in this business. But you got to follow the process of these 4 protocols that I'm going to give you. So let me show you what I mean. Now, remember I mentioned to you guys that what happens is that I will teach people in this process, and then what happens is they leave here and they don't ever do it. Well, I'm going to show you why that is here. So think of it this way, is right here is 6 to 9 months, okay? So what we're going to talk about today is a process to get you up and running, and to get you to where when you are working this as a closed system, you can count on from this point right here, when it matures, from that point on, you could have a 6-digit income, meaning and well over 6-digit. When I say 6-digit, really probably using today's numbers, and we will do the math on this, I'll show you, to where you could actually be making a huge income. But here's the thing, part of why, when I said to you guys that most of you are going to be excited about what I teach you, but you're going to leave here and not do it, the reason that's going to happen is because of this. Because you will notice right here, if this is 6 to 9 months out, this is probably halfway. So this is going to be 3 to 4 or 5 months out. Notice what's happening the first 3 to 4 months. Essentially nothing. Now, that's not true, by the way. And I don't know if I've asked you guys this question yet, so forgive me if I did. But I think I taught this class like 3 weeks ago already. So I'm kind of like, it's all kind of blending together if I shared this with you or not. So I'm going to ask, what do you guys know about how bamboo grows? Tell me what you know about bamboo and how it grows.
Well, the Chinese bamboo tree takes 5 years. I know how that works. You have to water.
Okay, good. So share it. Yeah, share it.
Yeah, so you have to water for 5 years consistently every day, and then actually no, it's 4 years, and then the 5th year, within 5 weeks, it finally breaks the ground and grows 90 feet tall.
Okay, perfect. Good job. That's exactly right. But now, so hold on. So what's happening the first 4 years, Jesse?
Nothing.
Well, the roots are growing.
I was going to say, that's not true that nothing's happening, but you have nothing. If you were standing there looking at it, above the surface, it appears that nothing is going on.
Mhm.
But yeah, what Kat said is right on.
Right.
What's going on is it's putting its root system in place. Well, so now here's the thing. With what I'm going to teach you guys today, I said to you initially, nothing's happening that first 3 or 4 months, which is not actually true. What's happened now, good news for you guys, the process I'm going to teach you in, it doesn't take 4 years of nothing happening before you get paid. So that's the good news. But unfortunately, for some of you, you might even look at it and go, well, I don't want to have to wait even 3 or 4 months. Well, now that you don't need to, and I'll give you some solutions here that we'll talk briefly about that will allow you to do something like this with this green line to where you bridge the gap a little bit. But we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on that today because I want to make sure you understand this. So the first 3 or 4 months, what's going to be happening is it's going to feel like nothing's happening. But there is something happening. It's getting its root structure in place for those first few months. And I'll say more about that as we go through it. But just keep in mind that when I say to you, a lot of you are going to leave here and not do it, what's going to happen is you'll start doing it. But after 2 or 3 months, you're going to feel like, well, I'm doing all this work and nothing's happening. Well, the same with that bamboo. What's going to happen is you're watering it daily, as Jesse said, but you're feeling like, oh, nothing's happening. Like, imagine having to do that for 4 years, and so that in the 5th year, it all of a sudden will break the ground and, like he said, go 90 feet tall in a matter of weeks. So usually when I bring that up, people will say, oh, it grows really fast, which is true once it starts to grow. And the same thing with this, you will notice it's going to go really fast for you, but it's going to take a little time to get there. So just be patient in it. And that's why I said to you, make sure you come back to this class every time I teach it until it starts to work. Because I promise you, you're going to leave the class and you're going to forget some of the things that we've talked about. All right, next. So the next piece of this, let me go to the next thing with this. All right. So I'll come back to that. I'll probably draw this on the board again later, but I'm going to get rid of it here. Now, next piece of this. Remember on that, I showed you the NAR study there, that in that NAR study, it showed that the majority of the people come from sphere of influence, and then it had a smaller percentage there of business that comes as a result of just agents knocking on doors, phone calls, stuff like that. All right, what happens is this. Now, there's 2 types of data in this business, and so I want to talk to you guys just quickly on this piece too, because I'm putting some pieces in place to make sure you guys understand it before we get into the nuts and bolts of this. When we talk about prospecting just in the general population, so making phone calls, knocking on doors, what are the chances that if you just go knock on a random person's door, that they're going to have a real estate need? So Nina says small, okay? So, and it sounds like you guys are agreeing. Okay, cool. So yeah, the chances are pretty small, but here's the thing. So there's 2 types of things that when people talk about data that come into play. So I pulled up the NAR study, the profile of home buyers and sellers. And the reason I pulled that up for you guys to show it to you is because that is what we would call empirical data. So there's 2 types of data. There's empirical data, which is actually like based on scientific study. It would be one way of saying it. And then there's anecdotal data. The anecdotal, our business, our profession, real estate is full of anecdotal data. In fact, most of the time, the stuff that you will hear from other agents, other trainers, managers, brokers is anecdotal. It's just stuff that they were taught that they're passing on. Now, let me give you a quick example of that, of what that looks like. This goes back, probably close to 10 years ago now, maybe not quite that long, but over 5 years ago and less than 10, somewhere in that range. I had gone to the company that I was with had brought in this trainer. It was a guy that he lives now in Vegas, but he lived in Boston at the time. he flew into Salt Lake to come and do a training class for our company. Well, in this training, he stood up, and one of the things he said was this, and I think I showed you guys this in last week, maybe I didn't, doesn't matter. But one of the things he said is that 88% of all for sale by owners end up listing their home. So you're going to hear in this business, you're going to hear people tell you somewhere between 80% and 98% of all for sale by owners end up listing their home. Well, hate to break it to you, but that is anecdotal data. And the reason I know that is because I've tried to find the empirical data. Now, so this guy flies into Salt Lake, he's teaching this class, he stands up and he says, according to NAR, and that's what people will always say, according to NAR, then they'll fill in the blank. So he did that. He stood up in this class and he said, according to NAR, 88% of all for sale by owners list their home. Well, on a break, I didn't do this to call him out in the middle of a training. Like, in fact, I would recommend for you guys not to do that ever. Like, if you're ever in a training class and the person says something, like, don't discredit them in front of a whole group, but go grab them on the side and ask the question. So that's what I did. So I go up to this guy and part of, I guess, why I did that is because I have spent the last 15 years training and had agents try to do that to me from time to time. So I go up to this guy on a break and I said, hey, so you mentioned this NAR survey that says that 88% of for sale by owners list. I have never been able to find that. Would you be willing to get it to me? See, I didn't even go up to him and say, I don't believe you, because at that point, I, to some extent, was like, maybe it does exist and I want to find it. So I went up to him and said on the break, hey, would you be willing to send me a copy of that? And he said, yeah, give me your business card and I'll send it to you when I get home. Great. So I gave him my business card and he left and I never heard from him. Well, part of this class that he was doing was he had said, go on Facebook, follow me, blah, blah, blah. So I had done that as well. Well, it goes by a couple of weeks from this training and he's never sent me the survey. Well, I understand. I mean, I've had times where somebody will ask me to do, which by the way, is why I always say to you guys, you put your email address in the chat box so that I can then hopefully, I think I always remember to go back and check that and then send it to you. Well, I just thought, well, I've had that happen before where I've had somebody give me a business card and then maybe I get home and forget or whatever. So I send him an email. No, sorry. I sent him a message through Facebook. I went and sent a private message. And I said, hey, you were going to send me that survey that showed that 88% of for sale by owners list from NAR. I just wanted to to remind you. Well, he never responded to my request. So a few weeks go by and I notice on Facebook that he has posted, hey, everyone knows according to NAR, 88% of all for sale by owners list. Well, so I just went on and made a comment and said, hey, you were going to send me a copy of that and I haven't seen it yet. He went then and deleted my comment, which told me he didn't have it. Now, here's the thing, and I wasn't trying, please know, like I was not trying to make him look bad by any means. I just wanted to know where this was because as I said, I sit and do these trainings. I wanted to be able to use it. Just like, and that is the reason that in this discussion, I pulled up and showed you guys the NAR survey for how they choose their buyers and sellers. That's the empirical data that we have. But on that report that I bought, and I buy that every year, which by the way, next month in November is when the 2020 will come out. So every November, NAR publishes this survey and it is thick. I mean, it's a big, thick thing. If you log in to realtor.org, you can buy it for 20 bucks. If you're not logged into realtor.org, it's going to be like 150. So don't do that. Make sure you log in if you want to buy it. But I buy the PDF version of it and then I just download it because I can use it for training. And yeah, I love what you're saying, Kyle. 88, and I think it's actually 86.5% of all statistics that are made up. I'm just kidding. So, but that is true. Like, by the way, so that's why I bring this up is just keep in mind that in real estate, you are going to hear people saying, if you have this many, this is what's going to happen and blah, blah, blah. Like, so for me, I usually want to drill down and find the empirical data. That's why I showed you guys that before. Well, so there's a ton of anecdotal data. So I'm going to share with you some things now. So here's the thing. And so again, I went to the census to find this information that I'm sharing with you guys right now. And what it said was that if you took, essentially, think of it this way, if you took a map and you drew a circle on that map, now it's going to have to be a pretty big circle, meaning you couldn't, if you went into a neighborhood and tried, you would not be able to say that what I'm going to put right up here is true based on a neighborhood. Like, you've got to have enough sampling, a big enough sampling for this to play out. But basically what they say is 12% of the population moves every year. So 12% of the population is going to move every single year. Well, that includes renters. If you factor out for the renters, then is where we would get, and you'll hear this throughout your career, but 7% of the population is in the process of buying or selling at any given moment. Well, if that's true, that 7% of the population is in the process of buying or selling at any time, what that means is if I go knock on somebody's door, so in fact, actually, let me do it this way. This is where I'm going to do mom and pa kettle math. If I knocked on 100 doors, how many transactions should I be able to get from that? If 7% of the people are going to be buying or selling. So either unmute, throw it in the chat box. So yeah, Leslie said 7. Okay. Now remember, I'm doing mom and pa kettle math because the answer is actually 14, just like it was with mom and pa kettle. See, the answer is always going to be 14. I'm just kidding. Now, but let me ask you, why is it 14 and not 7? And I'll give you the answer if you're not sure, but the reason is, now notice the question that I asked, that's right, Corbin, you got it. The question that I asked is how many transactions? So every home that sells in real estate, we double count a home selling because when we talk about transactions. So for instance, right now on the MLS in Utah, there are about 3,000 homes under contract. Well, that would equate to 6,000 transactions because there is a buyer side and a seller side. So every time a home sells, there are basically, think of it as 2 commissions. There's a buy side commission and a sell side. So the reason it's 14 from 7% is because there's a buy side and a sell side. So think of it that way. Now, so here's my point though, why I'm bringing that up. Typically what you're going to hear is this. You're going to hear something that looks like this. People will tell you, and actually I'd be interested to know if you guys have heard this yet, but if you talk to 100 people, you should get 10 leads, which should turn into 1 transaction. You're going to hear that over and over and over again throughout the business. You're going to hear managers and people tell you that. Now, again, I'm not trying to discredit them, but that is going to be the anecdotal data. They just heard somebody else say it. But where it comes from is this. It's that essentially what they're saying is, instead of saying out of 100 people, there's 14 transactions and you should be able to get 1 of them, it just sounds better to say 110 1, so they do it that way. But the roots of it are based in that. So the roots of it are based in it, fine, but that's not what this says. Now remember, what we're talking about here is an open system versus a closed system. Now, in an open system, what they're telling you is if you talk to 100 people, you should get 10 leads, should turn into 1 transaction. Now, here's the interesting thing. That actually sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Like, to me, that actually sounds like, well, yeah, now I told you guys the story in the lead generation class about how I was making 50 contacts a day. Well, so if this is true, and I was making 50 contacts every day, I should have been getting a transaction every 2 days. And if that's true, and I worked essentially 240 days in a year, I should have been doing 120 transactions a year. Well, I already shared to you guys when I was making the 50 contacts a day, I was surviving. So this is this sounds good, but I'm going to tell you what it really says. So we're going to do a little bit of a statistics 101 class now in terms of some of this stuff. So now don't get too caught up. Like I said, if you don't like math, it's not going to get any worse than what we're going to do right now. And I'm going to explain it to you. But essentially this sounds pretty good. It sounds like a good thing, but what it really says is this: the odds of you getting a transaction are 9-1 against you. Now, here's the problem with it. The reason this sounds okay, if I talk to 100 people, I should get 10 leads in one transaction, is ultimately those numbers probably, and I have no empirical data on this, by the way, but they probably do play out if you look at every agent across the whole country and the number of contacts that they make, the whole country, and how many contacts they make and turning into deals. That probably works. But let me tell you what this really says. Because remember, why I'm saying that is you got to have a big enough sampling. And the problem that we have in getting this to work is, as an individual agent, you can't get a big enough sampling to bring the numbers into alignment. Because here's what it says. What this says right here is every person you talk to, the odds of them being a buyer or a seller are 9-1, is what this is saying. The odds are 9-1 against you. Now, so essentially, let me show you what I mean. If this was true, that I could talk to 100 people and get 10 leads and turn into a transaction, essentially what that is saying is that every 10 people I talk to, I should be able to get a lead. And for every 100 people should get a transaction. Well, so let me show you what that means. Essentially, it's a 10-1 thing. So watch this. I'm just going to go in alphabetical order here for you guys. So I've got Art on here. So if I talk to Art, what are the odds of me getting a transaction from him? So actually, let me do it this way. I'm going to do it differently first. First, I'm going to say, so he's 1. Then Corbin's 2. Jesse's 3. Kat's 4. Kyle's 5. Leslie's 6. Nina's 7. Philip's 8. Sharon's 9. So then essentially, there's 9 of you guys on here. So if I got told by all 9 of you, what's going to happen on the next person I talk to? Either unmute or throw it in the chat box.
You should get a lead.
That's right. According to what this says and how our brain thinks, that the next person I should talk to should say yes. But here's the problem with that. That's not the way it works. Instead, what it looks like is this. So let me show you what it actually looks like. Even though, so the problem is we look at it and think, well, if I talk to 9 people and they told me no, the next person I should talk to should say yes. Well, with a big enough sampling, yes, that would potentially be true. But here's the problem. Essentially, yeah, what Kyle's saying is right. Essentially, what's happening is this, is if I talk to Art, what are the odds that he's going to say yes? They're 9-1 that he's going to say no. He's 9 times more likely to say no than he's going to say yes. Well, when I get to Corbin, what are the odds? 9-1. I get to Jesse, 9-1. Kat, 9-1. I get all the way through the list down to Sharon, and the odds are still 9-1. So even when I get to number 10 that I'm going to talk to, the odds are 9-1 against me. See, that's the problem in an open system. That's the way an open system works. And in an open system, the odds do not get better the more times you do it. Let me put it to you another way that maybe will help some of you understand it a little better. The way that Las Vegas works is Las Vegas is an open system. They understand odds, and they understand that the odds are in there. They have set it up to where the odds are in their favor. So here's the thing. What I'm saying to you is this. When somebody goes down to Las Vegas and they're playing the slots or whatever, poker, I don't care, 21, they play roulette, any of the games. Vegas knows the odds are set up in their favor. And that at the end of the day, all that matters is that people are putting money into the system because they know the percentage that they're going to get back from it because the odds are in their favor. Well, so when somebody goes and hits a jackpot and wins $1 million or $5 million or whatever, they don't care. In fact, they like it because it just gets more people to put more money in, and they know they're going to get the certain percentage. See, the reason Las Vegas works is they understand the odds and they understand how they work, and they put them in their favor. Well, let me ask you this. If there was a way you could put the odds in your favor in terms of real estate, would you want to do it? And I'm assuming the answer would be yes, right? Well, that's what I'm going to show you. Now, but here's the key to doing it. The first thing that has to happen, in fact, let me make sure that you guys can see this. So this is our little chart that I used earlier, okay? So I'm not going to do client here and the prospect and all that. We're going to talk about our SOI over here now, okay? Now, so remember I told you I was going to give you first protocols. The first protocol of this SOI is what we're going to talk about now. But let me give it to you. Let me make sure you understand it first. So that was an open system, what we've talked about here. In an open system, the odds do not change based on the number of times that you do it. Meaning, if I go to Las Vegas and I play, the odds are stacked against me every time. It doesn't matter how many dollars I put into the machine, the odds don't change. Now, there is another piece that we're not going to get into in math that's called regression towards the mean, that basically says that, yes, given enough times of doing it, the odds will balance out. But here's the problem in real estate. The number of times you're going to have to do it to get it to balance out, you'll be out of the business. So that's the problem with real estate. So instead, though, of doing it as an open system, which is the way that most people work their sphere of influence, they work it as an open system. Well, we want to do it as a closed system. So let me show you what a closed system looks like. Now, I realized just now too that I forgot my I forgot to bring up my dice, but so that's okay. Just picture if I had a dice, a 6-sided dice here, okay? What are the odds if we just picked a number, and let's just say it was number 3, what are the odds that when I roll the dice that I'm going to get a 3? Yeah, so Leslie said 1 in 6. So essentially, every time I roll the dice, the odds are 1 in 6. Now, they don't get better based on the number of times that I do it. Now, like I said, every now and then I'll get somebody in here that understands math, and they'll want to bring up the regression towards the mean. And if you rolled it enough times, it'll balance out. And that's true. But the odds every single time I roll it, though, don't get better. They stay the same. They're 1 in 6. Well, that's an open system. Now, what if I did it this way, though? Is what if I had the dice and I rolled it, and every time I rolled a number that was not a 3, I took a sticker and put it on and covered up that number. So let's say I rolled the dice and I rolled a 1, and I pull off a sticker and I put it over the top of the 1. Now, the rules of the game in this closed system are when I roll the dice, it only counts if I roll a 3 or a number that's not a 3. If I roll one that has a sticker on it, I get a free throw. Now imagine if you went to Vegas and you were playing craps and you said, okay, if on my first roll, I can't roll anything but a 7 or 11. Like I would, if you could do this in Vegas, guys, I would not be teaching this class. I would be in Vegas playing all day long, just cashing my checks. So you can't do it that way. But the good news is in real estate, you can. So here's the thing. So let's say I roll it and a 1 comes up and I put a sticker on it. Then I roll it again and I get a 2. So I put a sticker on it. Then I roll it again and a sticker shows up. So it was either a 1 or a 2, but it doesn't matter because it's a sticker. The rules of the game, I get to roll again. I get a free throw. Doesn't count against me. So now I roll it again and a 4 comes up. So I put a sticker on it. So now how many times have I rolled? I rolled it the 1, I've rolled it the 2, and the 4. So I've rolled it 3 times. So now I roll it again and a 6 shows up. Okay, so how many times did I have to roll it to get the 6? Was 4. I rolled it 4 times. But we keep the stickers on there, so now I do it again and I roll. And a sticker shows up. So I get a free throw. So I roll it again. A sticker shows up. I roll it again. The 5 shows up and I put a sticker on the 5. Now I've rolled it 1 time. So I roll it again and a sticker shows up. I roll it again and a sticker shows up. I roll it again and a 3 shows up. Now I've rolled it 2 times to get that 3. See, what's going to happen if I keep playing this game? Eventually, what are the odds going to get to? This is where I'm testing you to see. Yeah, okay, good, Kyle, you got it. Yeah, that's right. Eventually what happens is I get to where when I roll that dice, it's either a free throw or it's the 3, which essentially means I'm winning every time. I either get a free throw, it doesn't count against me, or I win. Now, like I said, if I could do that in Vegas, I would go do it. If you go try to do it in Vegas, you'll end up out in the middle of nowhere, floating somewhere in a river or something. So you can't go do this out in Vegas. But the good news is you can do this for your real estate career. You can do it in real estate, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So the number one rule, remember I said there are protocol, sorry. It's not a rule, it's a protocol. The number one protocol for making your sphere of influence work is you have to treat it as a closed system. Now, what does that mean? That's what we're going to talk about next. What does that mean? I've got to treat my database as a closed system. Now, one other thing actually that I forgot to say to you guys that I just realized that I want to say, and not that crucial that I forgot, but it's still helpful to understand. You're going to have a lot of people trying to sell you snake oil in this business. You're going to have a ton of people that are going to show up calling you. In fact, I even actually got a text. I'm going to pull it up. In the middle of this class, one popped up that said, let me read it to you. Hi, Russ, would you be agreeable to take real estate leads on a referral basis? We have buyers and sellers. If you're able to service new prospects, let's schedule a quick call to review the leads in the process. I'm open tomorrow. Like this kind of stuff, you're going to get that kind of stuff over and over and over again. You're going to have people call you and tell you, if you'll do this, it's going to work. And here's the thing. There's no silver bullet. There's no magic bean. Just know that. In this business, there is no silver bullet. There's no magic bean. There's no thing that's just, oh, if you go do this, you won't have to work and it's business is just going to show up. It doesn't exist, okay? But the closest thing to it is going to be this. But I'm telling you, you're still going to see this is work, and you got to follow the process for it to work. But you guys are going to get hit up over and over and over again of, oh yeah, if you just send out this flyer, you're going to get all these deals. If you just pay for this website, you're going to get all these deals. It does no. At the end of the day, you got to call and talk to people. Okay, that's the magic bean to this business is you got to call and talk to people. That's what it is. Okay. Now, so on this, you have to work this as a closed system. Now, a closed system, basically, another way of saying it is, and let me put that in, I'll put it in parentheses underneath, is fixed in size. So your SOI has got to be fixed in size. Now, so how many people should it be? Well, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that it's closed system and that it's fixed in size. But with that being said, I'm going to tell you guys, for you to get it working, and once it's working, you can change it to any number you want to. But until it's working, the number you want it to be is 200. You need 200 people in this database. Now, here's the interesting thing. I have been around this business for a long time. I have been to a lot of trainings of just about, you name the trainer, I probably have seen their training and been to it live in person. Now, what you are going to see though is, and what I have seen is when I go to these trainings, people will stand up there and they will ask, how many people do you have in your database? And a lot of times these are top producing agents, okay? These are agents making a ton of money. And they will say to them, how many people do you have in your database? And it's almost like they wear it as this badge of honor to say how many people that they have. And you will hear, bless you, Kyle, even though you weren't even you were muted, but I still saw it. So here's what will happen is that they will, in these trainings, they will stand up there and they will say, how many people you got in your database? Oh, I got 4,000, 10,000, 2,000, like all these huge numbers. Here's the problem with it. If you have 4,000 people in the database and you try to do these 4 things that I'm going to show you, it's not possible. It's not, you could not do it. But here's the other side of it. The other number that you're going to hear people saying, even within our own company, is that you're going to hear people say that on your SOI, you can get a 10 to 15% return. Well, again, I'm not aware of any data to back that up. I think that's anecdotal. And the reason I say that is because I've watched these top producers that stand up there and say they've got 4,000 people in a database. Well, if you had 4,000 people in a database and you should get a 10% return, you should be doing 400 deals a year. They aren't doing 400 deals a year. So to me, that's where I look. That's more the empirical data on it is I want to see that. Well, here's the thing. The reason with 4,000 people you can't get a 10% return off of it is because it becomes unmanageable. You cannot effectively stay in touch with 4,000 people. You just can't. But could you effectively stay in touch with 200 people? And the answer to that is absolutely you can. See, so that's why I'm telling you it's 200. Now, remember my little chart that I'll kind of redraw a little bit of it here of this. Then I said right here is going to be 6 to 9 months for you that to get working. Once you hit this point here where you can rely on this system to bring money in for you, once you get to that point, you can change this number to anything you want it to be. But I'm just telling you the most effective way to get it here and working, the way you're going to do that is through 200 people. So you're going to grow it to 200 people. And I'm going to show you about that in just a second. But I want to first make sure you understand this. So it's got to be fixed in size. So let me just test you guys to make sure that you get what I'm saying. So if I have 200 people in there and I go out prospecting, because you're still going to have to prospect, especially for that 6 to 9 months, you're for sure going to have to be prospecting outside of this as well. In fact, that's how you're going to feed this, and I'll show you. But if I'm doing that and I'm going out and I'm talking to these people and I've got 200 and I'm trying to build it and to get it to there, and for some reason I just lost the question I was going to ask you. Crap, I don't know what. Sorry about that. There was something I was going to ask. Go ahead, Kat.
Well, were you going to say about how you maintain the 200? You take some out, you put some in.
Oh, thank you. Yep, thank you. You got it. Thank you. Perfect. Okay. So I go out prospecting and I've got 200 people in there. I go out prospecting and I pick up a new lead. And in the process of picking up that new lead, I go add them to my database now because maybe they're not ready right now. So now I have 201 people in my database. Remember, protocol number 1 says it has to be fixed in size. So what do I have to do?
Get rid of a person.
That's right, because you can't have 201 and I can't have 199. So just keep that in mind. If you are at 199, what's that?
Put the sticker. Put the sticker.
The speaker?
Sticker.
Oh, a sticker. Yes, thank you. Perfect. Yes, a sticker. Yes, you're right on. I thought you said speaker. I was like, what? Yeah, put a sticker on. You're right. That's exactly right. Okay. Yeah, and in fact, actually, thank you for making the connection because that is what it is. Essentially, you're putting a sticker on the wrong ones. Right. Exactly, Kyle. Perfect. All right. Now, so with that being said, it has to be fixed in size. Now, in the meantime, though, you might be saying right now, but I don't have 200 people. That's okay. Your first objective then is to build it to that. But to figure out how many people you have, go to your phone and look in there of people you have saved in your phone. I mean, don't do it right now, but go look at it and go through it and look at that list of people and see how many people you have in there. Or you could go on to social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. I mean, probably not Twitter as much, but Instagram, Facebook, and look at how many people have you got in there. Because those people should be, and you could look at that if for some reason you have less than 200 people in your phone or on social media, then great. Your objective is build it up to that. So what you're going to do is go knock on doors or get on the phone and make phone calls. Could you guys door knock yet in California or no? No, still not. Okay. What are they going to do? Are they going to arrest you if you do?
I'm not sure, but we're told we can door drop.
Okay. Well, door drop and knock on the door while you're doing it. I'm just kidding.
Yes.
Hey, I don't even from California, and I'm not voting for Governor Newsom. Is he up for re-election this year? Please tell me he is. Good. I hope he gets voted out. All right, go ahead. Because he won't open Disneyland is my reasoning. Go ahead, Kyle.
Do you know who Brian Casala is on YouTube? He's a famous.
No.
Yeah,
he was just, yeah, he's like a real estate influencer, successful dude. I think he started with Century 21. He was just saying that that's all bullcrap. Like, people are still door knocking. There's pest control. It's outdoor knocking. There's no laws against it. But I don't know. I don't live there.
I tried looking.
Yeah, I don't.
He's a few hours away from me, and I follow him on YouTube too, Kyle. And I tried looking it up, but I can't find anything online that specifically says you can't door knock. But my
so see it. So it is just it's anecdotal data then. So go door knock.
We get door.
If you get arrested, don't call me.
Yeah, true.
All right. Okay, so let's see. Leslie's asking, how do you know which people to put on your list of 200 if you have way more contacts? Good. Yeah, great question. So if you have way more than that, here's the good news, Leslie, which I'm going to answer it, but part of how you're going to see it is when we get the rest of the protocols. But what you're going to do is just pick the first 200. It actually doesn't matter. You could actually get any 200 you want and put them in there. Just grab any 200. You guys can come in. So grab any of the 200. It honestly really doesn't matter which 200 you get, because what you're going to do then is you're going to start working them through this process that we're talking about. And as you work through the process on it, what will happen then is you will be able to get rid of some of them and put some others back. And I'll say more about that in a minute, but that's a great question, Leslie. So usually people ask, what do I do if I don't have enough? Well, if you don't have enough, go making phone calls and getting people that you can add. Now, remember, I talked to you guys about prospecting on 2 parallel tracks. We're looking for now, business, and future. Well, as you're prospecting on those parallel tracks, ultimately, I want to get an appointment. But if I'm out knocking on a door or I'm making a phone call and the person won't set an appointment with me, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that person and put them into the database. And as you put them into the database, it is going to then grow that number. So your objective, part of why I say it's going to take 6 to 9 months, is because even if you're Leslie and you've got more than 200 people, early on in this first few months of the process, what's going to be happening is you are going to be basically going through people pretty quickly. You're going to have people that are in it that you're going to be taking out. You're going to be adding more people to it. That process is, think of it as it's going to churn. It's going to churn pretty consistently early on. The longer you run it, the less it is going to churn though, in that process. So hopefully that makes sense, which is part of why it takes a little while to get this thing up and rolling. So great question, Leslie. Thanks for asking. All right. So we're good on that. The next piece of them. So the second, which actually leads to what you were asking. So I'm just going to build on Leslie's question. She's got more than 200 people. She puts 200 people in there. How is she going to know which ones to get rid of and put in there and all that kind of stuff? Well, that's tied to protocol number 2. Protocol number 2 is permission. You have to have permission from every one of the people that you're going to put in this database. You got to get permission. Now I'll show you what that looks like. So Leslie, here's what you're going to do. Pick 200 people, and then you're going to get on the phone with them and start calling them and saying this. So let's, in fact, actually, are you in a position you can unmute, Leslie?
Sure.
Okay, let's role play it, okay? So I'm going to be calling through my people and you're in there. So I'm going through my phone and I come across your name and I call it, ring, ring.
Hi. Hello.
Hey, Leslie, this is Russ Orchard. How you doing? Now, keep in mind, if they're in her phone or Facebook or Instagram or something, she probably has somewhat of a relationship with them. I should be able to call these people and say, hey, this is Russ Orchard. How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks, Russ. How are you?
Hey, doing well. Hey, I don't know if you are aware. So there's 1 or 2 ways. If you're new to the business, then I would do it this way. Hey, I don't know if you heard or not, Leslie, but I went and got my real estate license and have decided I'm going to make a career out of real estate. Had you heard that?
No, I didn't know. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, I'm really excited too, and I'm going through this training program. This guy that's teaching me is amazing. I'm just kidding, but I'm going through this training class, and one of the things that I'm learning in this class is that the best way for me to build my business is going to be by referral. So I just had a quick question for you: is if you had a real estate need, who would you call?
Well, I hadn't really thought about it, but maybe I'll give you a call now that I know you're a realtor.
Perfect. Perfect. That's what I was hoping. And so what I'm going to do then, Leslie, if it's okay, is I just want to be able to stay in touch with you, keep you updated on the market, let you know what's going on. And so what that would look like is I'll send you an email once a month with just kind of some information about what's going on in the market in your area. And then I'll just touch base with you from time to time to see if you have any questions or if you've heard of anybody thinking of buying or selling. Is that okay?
Sure, that sounds great.
Awesome. So that's what permission looks like, guys, is if I'm calling someone I know, just start it. Now, if you've been in the business at all for a while, or you know that the people know, then you could do it this way. And I would say, so Leslie, this is Russ with Century 21, or Scott, excuse me, this is Russ. I'm sure you probably know that I'm in real estate. Well, one of the things I've decided is for 2021, I want my business to be primarily referral dependent. So I'm putting together a select group of people. And I should have said that actually with Leslie, that first role play. Use that with the people you know and don't know. I'm putting together a select group of people. Now, why would I want to say I'm putting together a select group of people?
So they feel special?
That's right. Exactly right. So I want to say I'm putting together a select, sorry. I'm putting together a select group of people, and I'd like to add you to that list. Would that be okay? And then they're going to say yes. Now, what if though, so going back to Leslie's question, let's say you call through some of those, Leslie, and you are going to have a few, but here's what I'll tell you, it's going to be very few. When I did this right off the bat, called up a neighbor of mine that lived just up the street that he and I are friends, called him up and I said, his name's Jay. Called him up and I said, hey, Jay, I know you know I'm in real estate, but I'm wanting to change how my real estate business works. And I want it to be primarily referral dependent. If you had a need in real estate, who would you use? And he said, Russ, and I told you guys I had a different neighbor tell me this just this last week. But he said, Russ, I actually like to keep business separate from my friendships. So I wouldn't want to use you, unfortunately. And I said, hey, Jay, I appreciate the honesty. Now, and that's the way you want to do it. Because I said, I would rather know that now than drive by your house and see a sign out front one day. So thank you for telling me that. But let me ask you, Jay, if you heard of somebody thinking of buying or selling, would you refer them to me? And he said, absolutely. Great. Then I'm putting together a select group of people. I want to add you to that list. Would that be okay? Yep. And here's what I will tell you. He referred people to me. Now, here's the funny thing. So that happened that was over 10 years ago, actually probably even 15 years ago that happened. Might have even been longer now. But anyway, the other day I saw him. We have a 2-mile walking trail around our neighborhood. And I was out on the trail and I saw him. And he started talking to me about real estate. And I said to him, hey, Jay, I talk about you in class. And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, remember the time I called you and I asked you if you would use me and you told me no? And he's like, I never said that. I would totally use you. Now, so I don't know what's changed. I don't know if he's in a better financial position now and he wasn't and didn't want me to know that. Who knows? But he told me, no, in fact, actually, I'm thinking in the next couple of years, I'm probably going to retire. And when that happens, we're going to have you sell the house. So that's part of what I want you to see from this. But the point being is you have to have permission from everybody that you're going to put in there. And permission sounds like that. Now, let me do permission if you're just on the phone randomly calling people or knocking on a door. My first objective is to get an appointment. So if I'm on the phone and I'm calling, my first objective is I want to set an appointment. But if I can't get an appointment until I hit 200 people, what you want to do is ask every single person that you talk to. If you cannot get an appointment with them until you hit 200 people in your database, what you want to do is ask every person. So they say no to an appointment, great. I've got a select group of people that I stay in touch with to keep them updated on real estate. I would like to add you to that list. Would that be okay? They'll say yes. Great. Let me get your contact information. I'm going to send you an email once a month. So let me give you, that's protocol number 3. Protocol number 3 is you're going to have contact once per month by mail or email. So mail/email and personal contact. You need to have personal contact with them once a month, and email or mail contact. So, and you can do a combination of both if you wanted. But that's protocol number 3. So notice this. So far, this is not looking that difficult, I hope, to you guys. Meaning, like, I got to get 200 people. I get permission to stay in touch with them. And then I'm going to send them something, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. I'm going to send them something, either mail or email, once a month, and have personal contact with them once a month. And the personal contact is just going to be, so now that Leslie's giving me permission, when I call, I'm going to be like, hey, Leslie, this is Russ with Century 21. How you doing? She's going to say, great. I'm going to go, hey, just giving you that monthly business call. But before I do, how's the family? What's going on? Tell me how things are going for you. So she'll tell me for a little bit about how things are going. But notice I started it with, this is my monthly business call. Now, here's the key on this. You got to keep the business part of it separate and only do it once a month. So meaning, if I ran into Leslie at the grocery store or something, or out to dinner, I don't talk about real estate unless she brings it up. So if I see her at the mailbox, she's a neighbor of mine. I see her at the mailbox. I don't talk about real estate but one time per month. That's it. The rest of the times when I see her, I don't even bring it up. The only time I'll talk real estate is if the once a month call or she brings it up to me. Now, here's the good news. That's what ends up happening is I have people that I see at church or whatever that will just ask me, hey, how's the market? What's going on with real estate? Or tell me about this house. Did so-and-so really get that much for their house? Like, they will bring it up to me. But part of, again, why this takes a little while to get in place is for some of the people, you guys that are new, some of these people, you're going to call them up on the phone and ask for permission. They're going to give you permission. You're going to hang up and they're going to go to work tomorrow. So you're going to make the call today. They're going to say, yep, I'd refer you, Jesse, no problem. They're going to go to work tomorrow. They're going to sit down at lunch with a friend, and the friend is going to say to them, yeah, we think it's probably time that we get a bigger house. And they're going to go, oh, really? That's cool. Now, the reason that's going to happen is the shelf life of your phone call is going to be about that long. Meaning, the first time you call and talk to them, they hang up and they've forgotten already that you're in real estate. They don't even think about it again. So part of that is why this happens. The other reason that it takes a little while for this to get into place, if you're new and Leslie's calling up some of those people from her phone and saying, hey, started real estate, not sure if you're aware. Nope, I wasn't. Okay, well, hey, I'm putting together this and I went to this training and they told me I should do it by referral. And so I want to build up a referral business. And they say, okay. What's going to happen though is that they hang up and they're like, I'm not letting Leslie list my house. I don't know if she, like, they don't consciously do this, but they're thinking to themselves, does she really know what she's doing? I'm not sure if she does. So I don't know if I should list it with her. To some extent, my friend Jay, that could have been what it was too. So I'll explain how we build that confidence. You had a question, Kat, go ahead.
I made just a real estate contact with my picture and then Century 21 number, my cell number, blah, 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 the address, office address. Should I offer to send that in that first call with them?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to send over. In fact, especially if it's not somebody you know, I for sure say, great, I'm going to shoot you an email with all my contact information so that you'll have it. Yeah, love that idea.
Well, they have my personal contact, I'm sure, but this one is like for real estate in case someone that they know is, they want to send it to them. Then it's just like my real estate as opposed to like Kathy, the outreach director before or something.
So I guess let me make sure I'm understanding this. So are you saying to have a different phone number then or no?
No, same phone number, just different picture,
okay.
Different name.
Gotcha.
Not different name, but you know what I mean.
Gotcha. Yes, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, for the people that you know, I would say, yeah, I'm going to send you 4 or 5 business cards that if you hear of somebody at work or something, you could give them my contact info to give a call. So is that answer for what you're asking?
Sorry, I'm muting. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, good. Perfect. Okay, good. All right. So we're going to have contact once a month by mail or email and personal contact. Now, sometimes people will say, can I leave a message or could I send them a text? The answer is yes, if you have permission. Once you have permission, you could do that. Now, here's the thing though. If I do that and I don't get a response from them, I don't hear back from them, you have to decide how many times you'll let that go on before it's time to consider if you should keep them in the group or not. For me, I kind of take the 3 strikes and you're out, meaning I take the, if I tried to call them and they don't answer and I left them a message, or I sent them a text and just said, hey, just checking in to see if you had any real estate needs. If there's anything I can help you with, let me know. That will be fine. But if I go 3 months in a row with them not responding to me, then on the 4th month, here's how I did it, is I would call up and I would say, all right, Kyle, I get your voicemail or I shoot you a text and I haven't heard from you. I would say, hey, Kyle, this is Russ with Century 21. Give me a call. I got a really important question for you. Now, that's how I handled it. If I didn't hear back from them 3 months in a row, on month number 4, I'm going to say, hey, I got a really important question for you. Give me a call. Now, if they don't call you back from that, what are they telling you?
Uninterested.
That's right. Essentially, they're just saying, I'm not interested in what you're doing. I'm not seeing no value in it. That's what they're telling you. So now what if they do call you back? Usually I get that question. What if they do call me back and go, hey, Russ, yeah, said you had a really important question. What's up? What's the question that I have?
Do you have any
All
real
right.
needs?
Close, very close, Jesse. Instead of do you have any real estate needs, what I'm going to do is essentially reestablish the permission. So what I'm going to do is this, is I'm going to say, so let's assume it was Jesse that calls me back. Hey, you said you had a really important question. What I'm going to say is, hey, yeah, I just hadn't heard back from you for a few months. And I just want to make sure that I'm not wasting your time with the information that I'm sending to you, that you're finding value in it, and that you're okay if I still keep sending you that information. Is that okay? And then I'm looking for either a yes or a no. And I don't care which I get. If they tell me no, actually, to some extent, I'm happy. Because as Nina said, I get to put a sticker on them at that point. They're a free throw, meaning they're out. See, that's how that becomes this sticker, the free throw is, I just found somebody that's not going to do business with me. All right, so let me give you the next 4th protocol here, and then I'll answer whatever questions and I'll talk you through what to send and some of those things. Protocol number 4 is this. The purpose of your phone call is to look for red. Now, this is counterintuitive. This is counterintuitive to what you would think. The purpose of you making these monthly phone calls, if I would have asked you guys, and I probably should have, but if I would have asked you, what is the purpose of me making the phone call every month to these people? Your answer to me would have been to find people who want to buy or sell real estate. But I'm telling you right now, it is not for that purpose. Remember I said this class has a short shelf life. If you don't get started on using it, and even if you do, down the road, you're going to forget. And I said to you, keep coming to this class until you get it. This is why. Because I promise you down the road, I'm going to ask you the question, hey, so what's the purpose of making the phone call every month to this group of 200 people? And you're going to say, well, to find a deal. Nope. The purpose of my phone call is to find out who I don't ever have to call again. Now, why? Why am I calling for that? This is the opposite. So when I say it's counterintuitive, it's the opposite of what you would think. Why would I be doing it that way, calling, looking for the people who are not going to do a deal with me or refer to me?
To add someone new to your list?
Okay, good. You're on the right track. There's more to it than that, though.
The people that are going to refer you, you don't need to call them. They're going to refer you anyways. So you don't want to waste your time and call the wrong people.
Perfect. Think of it that way. How Kyle said it is right on. Essentially, think of it as this way. There's 2 types of people in this database that we're calling through. There's what I like to refer to as green and red. The green people are who are going to do real estate with you and refer business to you. The red people are the ones who are not. I got someone in here making fun of me because I'm doing this with markers. But the red people, the ones who I consider as red, are people who are not going to do business with you or refer people to you. Well, if that's the case, why do I want to call them? That's the free throw, the sticker. So my purpose of calling is to find these people, because these people, the green ones, are going to take care of themselves. What Kyle said is right on. The ones that are green are just going to call me on their own and say, hey, Russ, we need to sell our house. Hey, Russ, you need to call and talk to this person. They need to buy or sell. See, ultimately, at the end of the day, you might be asking the question, and even if you didn't ask it, you're probably unconsciously thinking it. Well, why would you have any red in there? Why would you have any red at all? Because I'm telling you, the purpose of my phone call is to figure out who the red ones are, not the green ones. The green will show up on their own. You got to find out the red. And the reason for that is this. I wish we were in person. There's one exercise that I love to do, but it will not work over Zoom. But I'll sum it up for you though. It is easy to get people to lie to you. And if you guys were all here in person, I would take you through and do this exercise, and I would show you how easy it is to get you to lie to me. Even if you tell me you're a person that doesn't lie, I can get you to lie to me. And I would take you through this exercise where I would show you that even with me trying to get you to tell me the truth, you would still lie to me. And the reason you would do it is because you would think we were playing a game. Even if I told you I'm not playing a game, you'll still lie to me. And here's the thing. The point of it when I do that is you're going to add people here, and I already told you have to ask them for permission. Guess what? They're going to give you permission, but they're not really giving you permission. They're telling you, yes, you can stay in touch with me, because they don't want to be rude and tell you, no, I'm never going to refer anybody to you. Same thing with you knock on a door, you call somebody on the phone and you say, I've got a select group of people that I stay in touch with. I would like to add you to that list. Would that be okay? Yeah, that would be great. Give me your contact information. They give you the contact information. You go to call them the next month and they go, don't ever call me again. I don't know why you're calling me. Or they just don't answer the phone, whatever. It is easy to get people to lie. It's hard to get them to tell the truth. And so what's going to happen is you're going to put in people in here. Remember I told you about the general population? I had that big circle up there. Those people will say, yeah, you can stay in touch with me. But then over time, they're going to go, well, I guess probably don't. But most of the time, they're just going to not answer the phone, any of those kinds of things. So that's the next piece of this. So how can you tell who the people that are red are from the ones that are green? Well, the way you're going to tell who the red are is when you call them, they're going to flat out just say, don't call me again. That's the easy way to tell if they're red. The other way you're going to tell if they're red is you're going to call and say, hey, this is Russ, just calling to check in to see if you had any real estate needs or if there's anything I could help you with. And they're not going to call you back. And then, like I said, you do that 3 months in a row. Then on the 4th month, I call and they don't call me back. And on the 4th month, I say, hey, got a really important question for you. Call me back. If they don't call you back, they're red. So at that point, I get rid of them. Well, now I'm at 199. What do I have to do? Got to go find somebody else. You got to replace them. So the magic in this thing working is here's what's going to happen. Essentially, think of it this way. If you were to just go out and do the general population, call them up and just call, essentially, your database is going to look something like this to begin with. Out of 100 people, it would be 93 to 7. And oops, I probably should have done it this way, actually. If you got 100 people put into your database, 93 of them are going to be red and 7 of them are green. Now, that's not the case if you're calling from, people that you know already. But from the general population, when you go through, it's going to look something like this. Out of 100 people that agree to be in your database, 93 of them will be red and 7 will be green. Meaning, and those 93 will show up as red pretty quickly. Meaning they will the next month say, I don't even remember talking to you. Where did you get my information? Why are you calling me? They'll show up pretty quickly that way. But out of 100 of them, 93 are going to be red and 7 would be green. So if you look at that, essentially what I'm saying is if you just went out and knocked on random doors and called people, by the time you got 200 people saying, yes, you could stay in touch, you've got only 14 of them that are probably legitimately going to either do a deal with you or refer somebody to you over the next year. But just because they refer somebody to you doesn't mean you're doing 14 deals. You might, if you got 14 referrals, you might talk to 7 or 8 of those people and you might end up doing 2 or 3 deals. That's okay. I'm okay with that. But so your objective in this calling once a month and sending them something and then calling, looking for the red, is to figure out who you can get rid of. Now, because here's the thing. Once you figure out they're red and I can get rid of them, anybody that I replace them with is going to be better than they are. Even if they're red, it's not going to hurt. Hopefully that makes sense. Are you guys clear on what I'm saying? Is it making sense? So what's going to happen then is over time, this just slowly changes to being less and less red and more of the green. Over time, which is why it takes 6 to 9 months, which really is not that big of a deal. But here's the thing. For me personally, here's how I ideally want to, remember I told you I was going to tell you how do you bridge the gap? Well, the way you bridge the gap is through prospecting. Now, ideally for me, here's how I would want to do this. The way I want to build this is ideally, I want to build it with hand raisers. Now, the good news for you guys in California, which is the majority of you guys, I think actually all but Corbin and Kyle, everybody else is California, right? Anybody else from Utah besides Kyle and Corbin? Okay, good news for you guys is if it were me and I was in California, now to some extent this will work in Utah as well, Corbin and Kyle, but it doesn't work as well. It's just how it is. If I was in California, the way I would build my database of 200 people is I would go do open houses and try to get every person who walks into an open house to agree to letting me either do an appointment would be the first objective. But if not, I'm going to add them to my database. Stay in touch with them. If you could get 200 people from open houses that are that way, would be ideal. Now, the reason Kyle and Corbin, I say in Utah, not as much. In California, it is not, well, you guys tell me, I don't know if it's changed, but it's not uncommon. And maybe with COVID, it's not the same. But in California, it's not uncommon to get 30 people to come through an open house. In Utah, we get 2 or 3, maybe 4 or 5, unless you're in Sugar House or the Avenues. If you could do an open house in Sugar House or the Avenues, you'll get 30 people. But outside of that, once you get outside of downtown Salt Lake, it way goes down the number of people that will show up. So instead, though, think of it this way. I want hand raisers. So Corbin, I think you're on a team, right? Are you on a team, Kyle, or no? You're not. Okay. So, but I think Corbin, you're on a team, right? Yeah, I think you're on Brandon and Sterling's, right? Yeah. Any of the people calling off of that, you want to, if you can either get an appointment with them, but if not, then people that you could throw into there. Essentially, what you want is hand raisers, people that are raising their hand, saying, "I'm thinking about doing something real estate related." If you could get 200 of those people in there. The reason it takes 6 to 9 months for them is it takes 6 to 9 months for them to get to a position that they're ready and able to do deals. Because somebody who shows up to an open house is showing up saying, "We're just looking," and they truly believe it, but in 6 to 9 months, they're going to do a deal. So if you can capture them, you'll be it. So that's the first thing I would say is that's how you want to bridge this gap. But in your prospecting, you're going to come across some people who are ready, willing, and able to go right away. Well, that's great. That's how you're going to bridge the gap in the meantime. All right. Let's see what to send. So let me answer this question, then I'll see what other ones you guys have. What to send. So on this contact once a month by mail or email, at the end of the day, it does not matter what you send. Like, let me just say it that way. At the end of the day, send whatever you want. The best thing to do, though, is going to be send something that's real estate related. What I mean by that is it will work if you send anything, but it'll work better if it's real estate related. I read an article in the Realtor magazine about a lady who had written in a funny story, and she said she mailed recipe cards. And she would mail recipe cards to these clients. Well, she gets a phone call one day from somebody that says, "Hey, I love your recipe cards. They're the best. Man, I don't know where you come up with these recipes, but they are so good." And she's like, "Oh, thanks. I appreciate it, blah, blah, blah. But hey, we've moved and I wanted to give you my new address so you could keep sending them to me." See, the problem is by sending recipe cards is they relate to you as the recipe card person, not the realtor. So if you send something real estate related, it builds credibility. Remember I said some of the people in your database that your SOI people that you know are not going to be willing to refer people to you right off the bat because they don't know if you know what you're doing. So the way you're going to build the credibility is instead of sending recipe cards, send them things that are happening in terms of real estate. So for you guys in California, if you're going to hold an open house, mail out an invitation to all 200 of those people. Wanted to invite you to come to my open house. You might not be thinking of buying this house, but just wanted you to know we're going to be holding it if you know of anyone. They're going to, even though it's not your listing, they're going to assume it's your listing. So for you guys in Utah, mail out to somebody, find a listing in that's from Utah. I've got some right now. If you want to use one of mine, you could send out a, hey, we, and you would just say it as we, you wouldn't say I, we just listed this home for sale. If you know of anybody thinking of buying or selling that would be interested in it, let me know. What that does to these 200 people is it builds the credibility, because even though you might be sending my listing out to them, Kyle, what's going to happen is they're going to get that and they're going to think it's yours. And then when it sells, you could send them out, hey, we just sold this listing. They're going to think it's you that did it. It builds the credibility that way. So the other thing I would recommend to do, now this will take a little bit of time, but it works so good. Remember I said to you, the guy said, I'm going to give you the best marketing idea and none of you are going to do it. Well, I'm about to give it to you guys now. And this is what it is. What he said is go through this list. He didn't say 200, but he said your SOI. Go through this list of 200 people and find out from them based on where they live, essentially create it either through Zap or through the MLS. You can do it either way, but set up a criteria that is going to email to them the homes that are for sale in their neighborhood. So that every time, and you may want, if you do it through Zap, it will find the 5 closest houses to them that's for sale, and it'll send to them every week, which I wish we could do it monthly, but through Zap, it does it every week. But basically send to them, here's what's going on in your neighborhood. Here's the homes that are for sale or even have sold if you can get that. But send to them, this is what's going on in your neighborhood. And once you can send to them what is going on in their neighborhood, it is going to build the credibility. They're going to think you sold every one of those houses when you really didn't. That's what it's going to do. But it builds the credibility that they think you're the one doing it. Then your phone call once a month is just, hey, just touching base. All right, what questions do you guys have?
So we email or mail and call once a month.
Correct.
Thanks.
Yep. Now, let me just sum it up. I just realized one other thing I wanted to show you. We'll wrap with this unless you have other questions. If you had 200 people in there, now, this is where I realized what I didn't say is essentially what I want to do is go from this 93 to 7, if it was just the general population, you can get it to where you are 60% are going to be green and 40% are red of the people. So here's how I define somebody that is green. A green person, somebody that's green, is going to be somebody who will either do business with me or refer business to me over the next year. But truthfully, I would be okay if they didn't refer anybody to me that I did a deal with until every 4 years. Really, at the end of the day, because look at this. If you had 200 people and every one of them referred somebody to you that you did a transaction with only once every 4 years, essentially that would still be 50 transactions per year. But let me show you what this looks like. Let's just say if I had 60% being green, 60% of that would be I've got 120 people that are green. They're either going to do business or refer it to me. Now, as I said, just because they refer somebody to you doesn't mean that every one of them is going to turn into a transaction, although it is way higher likely that it does from a referral. Okay. So let's say out of that 120 that I got referrals from them, and that's why I'm constituting that 60% could be green. And here's the thing. If you're not to that, all it says is you just got to keep replacing people until you get the ones that do. Let me just tell you a quick story on that. Lady that cut my hair for years and years and years. So actually, let me back up further than that. My best friend growing up married this lady that did hair. So I started naturally to go to her to get my hair cut. Well, they lived in a complex of townhouses. And I would go to her name was Terry. I would go to get my hair cut from Terry. And what would happen is every time I would get there, she would be like, oh, hey, you need to call so-and-so that lives in our townhouse complex, because the cool thing is these were all brand new when they were built. And so almost everyone that bought them would fit into one of two categories. They were either old and retiring, getting away from having yards, but these were 3-story townhouses. So most of them were not retiring people. They were young people who were in college and or just finishing college and getting jobs. Well, as a result, they would get promotions, and then now they had to move. Well, tons of the ladies in there would go get their hair done by Terry. So I would show up and Terry would, like literally probably almost every 6 weeks, but for sure once a quarter. So every 12 weeks, I would go to get my hair. Like I would go every 6 weeks, but if she didn't give me somebody one time, 6 weeks later, they would. So that's where I'm saying at least every 12 weeks. At least every 12 weeks, but usually every 6 weeks, she was telling me somebody I needed to call. Like you want to build 200 people that are that way. Now, the truth is you're never going to get it to 200 that are like that, like Terry, but you could get a number of them. So when I say out of 200, you could get 120 referrals, like no kidding, I probably every year would get 5 or 6 referrals from Terry. Because there were sometimes I would go and she'd be like, yep, got 2 people for you to call this time. Like that, I did a ton of business in that townhouse complex as a result of Terry. Well, that's what you want to build this as. So you just constantly are getting it to that point. So, okay, let's say that I had 120 people that would either refer somebody. Let's just say I could get 120 referrals out of it. Well, of that, let's just say that 60 of those turned into an appointment. Now, I'm just saying an appointment doesn't even mean a deal. And let's say half of those only turned into a transaction. So I'm saying I get 120 referrals out of this, and that I only end up with 30 transactions as a result of that. So essentially, 25% of the referrals turned into something. Well, times that by your average commission, we'll use Utah's number of say 7,000. Well, that's $210,000 a year from just these 200 people. See, that's the power of this thing. But let's say that I'm wrong and it only ends up being half of that it's 15 transactions. So you're still talking 105,000 on Utah's numbers. For California, you guys are more like 10,000 out of that to 150. I mean, here's what I will tell you. If you will follow this process, you will do way more than 15. It is going to be more in the 30, 40, or 50 transactions a year because it's a math problem. And all you have to do is, if it's not working, get better at getting rid of these reds and replacing them with anybody, because anybody's better than somebody that's not going to refer to you. So if at the end of the year, your mom is in your database and she's never referred anybody to you, get rid of her. Now, here's the good news. Some of those people that you keep in there for a year, that you then finally go, yeah, they've never referred anybody to me, I'm replacing it. And you replace, but you don't have to do it at the end of the year. You could wait 2, whatever you want to do. But you get rid of that person and put somebody else in. Well, then here's what's going to happen. Is what's going to end up happening then is you're going to constantly be getting rid of those people who aren't. But even if you get rid of somebody who isn't referring to you, I still to this day will have people call me up and be like, hey, Russ, you still selling real estate? I haven't heard from you for a while. Yeah, I'm still doing real estate. Oh, great. Well, we need to sell our house. These people that you get rid of,
Did we lose him?
Like it. Looks like we lost him.
We're almost done too.
Yeah. He'll come back. Come on back, Ross. Which office are you, Jesse?
What was that, Nina?
Which office are you at?
I'm at the Wood Ranch, Simi Valley.
Old Ranch. Cool.
Yeah. You're at Oxnard, right?
I'm Camarillo.
Oh, Camarillo. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I see you in the role plays in the morning.
Yeah.
Oh, I think he left.
Looks like it.
Should we just
Maybe his
finish?
phone. I don't know. Maybe his phone is dead.
It made me the host. It's recording.
That's why I keep
That's
going.
funny. Jesse, tell some jokes, man.
Yeah.
All right. I guess I'll leave. Thanks,
Yeah.
everybody. Have a good day.
Have a good one.
Bye. There's 6 more minutes. I don't want to leave.
I think I'll wait.
Me too.
I'm gonna text him. He gave us his phone number.
Oh, yeah? What's his phone number?
I have to check. I took a picture. Do you want me to give it to you now?
Yes, please.
It's 801
Mhm.
556
55.
4556 and then 4441.
So 801-556-4441.
It's yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What do you think about the idea of waiting to see if people use that pump? Right. Right. Oh, us too. Absolutely. Okay.
He said they lost internet there.
Then we'll wait. Right.
I asked him.
Probably he'll finish it tomorrow then.
Yeah.
Jesse. 4 minutes.
Yeah. It's still recording. This will be funny. Oh, he said no class tomorrow.
No class tomorrow? Why? What's going on tomorrow?
I don't know. He said it. He said no class tomorrow. Let everyone know I can't get back. The internet's down. We'll be in mortgage class on Tuesday at 9. California 10. Actually 10 Utah, California 9. So,
Mortgage class?
yeah, he said no class tomorrow.
Hey, sorry about that, guys. I'm back, but
Yay!
I think
Yes.
Jesse yeah, that was the worst. I was like just ready to wrap up, and all of a sudden the internet just went dead, and I could not get back on. So I apologize.
That's
Glad you guys
okay.
stuck around.
Good, you're back.
I tried texting Kyle too, but I don't know if it went through to you or not, Kyle. But
I didn't get it.
anyway, so luckily Jesse texted me, so I got that. So cool. All right. So yeah. So really, as far as the sales skill stuff for Peak for you guys in California, this kind of concludes that. But there still are a few other classes if you guys want to attend. Like next week, Tuesday will be mortgage, which would be helpful. It's in Spiro, just going through the basics of the mortgage stuff. And then Thursday is a dot loop class, which they'll just go through how to use dot loop and things. So, but then after that, I think the next
Thursday?
few classes that the next few classes that I'm doing after that are Utah specific. I mean, you're welcome to join, but it would be about our contracts and stuff. So you guys will be doing those, I think, in California. So anyway, go ahead.
There's a rotation of classes or whatever. How many classes are there for the peak agent?
There is essentially 20.
20.
And I say that a little hesitantly because there's a couple that I just kind of sprinkle in from here and there. But I do have a spreadsheet that I'm tracking you on. So
Okay. And
So
then
20 classes?
yeah.
Like one side are technical skills classes, right?
Yep.
Have we gotten into those ones specifically, or?
No, those will be the week after next and where we're going to hit on that.
I just
So
want-
for you, it'll be the 12-hour new agent course, basically.
Okay. Because I already had this class recently, and so I didn't know how that rotation worked.
Well, yeah. So typically we rotate through them, but because I'm not traveling to California, we've thrown in this. That's why we did it as a 2-week every day kind of a thing. It was mostly for the California agents, but I invited you guys along.
Perfect. Thanks.
So okay, cool guys. Thank you much.
Okay,
Thank
Talk
thank
to
you.
you later. This time
Thank
I'm really
you.
going to leave you on purpose.
you.
See ya.